Welcome to our first Watershed Tools for Local Leaders seminar for 2026, New Jersey Highlands Council, Protecting Critical Water Resources. We will be recording this webinar. Please sign your name and affiliation into the chat. We will hold Q&A for the end. Please type any questions into the chat or the Q&A, and please remain muted throughout the presentation to avoid any background noise. Thank you. My name is Tracy Gordon. I am the Outreach Advocacy Coordinator here at Raritan Headwaters. Raritan Headwaters is a 501c3 nonprofit conservation organization. Since 1959, Raritan Headwaters has focused on one thing: clean, safe water for all. We engage citizens and decision makers in the protection of our watershed and beyond through our award-winning science and education programs, land preservation, and advocacy. We are the region's leading provider of water quality research, habitat restoration, and water restoration services. We preserve and steward critical watershed lands. RHA plays a decidedly unique role as no other organization offers a similar scope of services focused primarily on the Headwaters region in the Raritan. Our Watershed Tools for Local Leaders provides guidance and scientific principles, government regulations, and funding sources for watershed protection. These seminars are offered to decision makers and other stakeholders from 38 municipalities and 3 counties in the Raritan Headwaters watershed and beyond. Our goal is to provide expert level knowledge, practical information, resources, and partnerships to assist local leaders and citizens alike to make informed decisions to protect and restore water resources. The Raritan Headwaters is New Jersey's largest watershed. Throughout this beautiful region, countless pristine tributaries merge and flow into the north and south branches of the Raritan River. Safeguarding these headwaters means clean, safe water for 300,000 watershed residents and 1.5 million New Jerseyans living downstream in more urban areas that depend on the water that comes from our rivers and reservoirs. 2/3 of our watershed region are within the New Jersey Highlands region. In 2004, Governor McCreevy passed the Highlands Water Protection and Planning Act, which recognizes the New Jersey Highlands as a landscape of significance that is to be protected as an essential source of drinking water. The Highlands Water Protection and Planning Council was established and charged with preparation of a regional master plan for the preservation area in the New Jersey Highlands to fulfill the Act's intentions. Raritan Headwaters depends on and is grateful for the work that the Highlands Council and staff do to protect critical water resources. At this time, I am honored to introduce our speaker today. Since 2022, Ben Spinelli has been the executive director of the New Jersey Highlands Council. He leads a team of regional planners, environmental scientists, and GIS experts in the protection of 1,300 square mile New Jersey Highlands region. He served as a mayor of Chester Township from 1998 to 2007. During his tenure as mayor, he was one of the original members of the Highlands Council from 2004 to 2006. He holds a BA in political science and history from Muhlenberg College in PA. He earned his doctorate of jurisprudence at Seton Hall. Fun fact about Ben, he is a self-proclaimed Jersey guy, and through a combination of his work and avocations, he has managed to visit every single New Jersey municipality. That's 565 towns in this state of ours. Crazy, Ben. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for speaking with us today, and I will stop sharing my screen and let you bring yours up.
Thanks, Tracy. So let's see if we can. You have to give me permission to do this.
Let's see. Stop sharing. Okay, Ben, you should be able to bring yours up.
Okay. So I'm hoping that you can see the slides now.
I can't. No. Yes, you're good. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. Cool.
All right, good to go.
Good to go.
All right, thanks, Tracy. And good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm going to take you through a little bit of the background of the Highlands and talk about our work, and more specifically, our work with 88 municipalities of the region, along with what our mission really is all about. Here at the Highlands, we take what we do very seriously, and we feel that it is maybe the most vital, you know, really responsibility for the future of the state, right? Is there any more fundamental responsibility of government than protecting an adequate supply of clean drinking water for the citizens that it serves? I'd say you're hard pressed to find something more important for us to do. But so let's just start with the fact that look, the Highlands came about in August of 2004, and the journey here to 2026 has been an interesting one, right? We've gone through 6 different governors. There's been 7 different executive directors sitting here in my chair. We've had 40 different council members over that period of time, including 7 new members who just joined us this January. We've endured budget cuts and staffing cuts, political change, changing demands and priorities, and changing conditions that underlie everything that we do. But the bottom line is that through all this, we're still here working every day to protect the region and the region's vital resources. So how did we get here, right? So the 2004, the Highlands didn't appear out of thin air, right? The protection of the Highlands has been something that's been of importance to the state of New Jersey since the late 19th century, right? The Highlands was recognized for its resource values and primarily as a source of drinking water since the 1890s. When you go back to when the city of Newark came out and bought 35,000 acres here in the Highlands to provide the city's water supply when the Passaic River was no longer viable as a source of water. Over the course of time, a lot of different pressures have impacted the region. The biggest one being the development of the land mass of the Highlands during the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. Looking at what the impact of that development was led the U.S. Forest Service to conduct a study not just of the New Jersey Highlands, but of the 4-state Highlands region. If you're not aware, the Highlands is not just unique to New Jersey. It's an area that stretches from south central Pennsylvania, northeastward across New Jersey, across lower southeastern New York, and into Connecticut, and really does extend a little bit into Massachusetts and southwestward into Maryland. But the 4 states, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut, were the subject of the Forest Service study. One of the things that is of note is that across the breadth of the Highlands, it provides drinking water supply for the big cities of the Northeast, from south to north. In response to the U.S. Forest Service study and the recognition of the resources of the region, it was recognized as a special resource area in the 2001 New Jersey State Plan. The Forest Service study led to the creation of the New Jersey Highlands Task Force by Governor McGreevey in 2003 that came up with recommendations for how to manage the region for the long term. It also resulted that Forest Service study resulted in the creation of the Federal Highlands Conservation Act that does cover the 4 states. It's not a land management law, but it is one that authorizes the money for the preservation of land and for scientific research and other activities that are designed to protect the region's resources. But the most notable one is that it does recognize the Highlands as a resource area of national significance. And of course, following the New Jersey Highlands Task Force findings, the New Jersey Highlands Act came into being, was passed through the legislature in June of 2004 and signed by Governor McGreevey into being that August. So protection of the Highlands, as I said, is not a new idea. The 1907 report of the Potable Water Commission came up with what you see here. I'm not going to read it, but understand the one highlighted sentence: these watersheds should be preserved from pollution and all hazards, for upon them the most populous portions of the state must depend for their water supplies. That was true in 1907. It's true today, and it's going to be true for the foreseeable future. In case this is an old GIF that's animated that shows some of the things that were responded to back in 2004 that led to the creation of the Highlands Act. The rapid suburbanization of the state was seen as a threat to the water supply, and it was. Right, you can just take a look here at this. Rick Lathrop down at Rutgers did this back in, and it became a big part of the advocacy for why the Highlands was important. Right, we saw the loss of environmentally sensitive lands, the loss of agricultural lands, right? The things that protect the water supply, the things that made the Highlands so special and why it needed to be protected were at risk from this rapid development. Right? The Highlands Act itself cited the conditions that were in place, right? Understanding that it was an essential part of the drinking water supply. Um, their calculation, I think, is a little off. I really think we're closer to 17% of the state's land area. The bottom line is the sentiment remains the same. We're a small portion of the overall land mass of New Jersey, but we are important to the entirety of the state. We protect the water supply, some or all of the water supply for around 70% of New Jersey's population. But it's more than just the water. It's the forests, it's the wetlands, the habitat for flora and fauna. It's the places of historic and cultural significance, the places where New Jerseyans recreate. Not only do we protect the water supply for nearly 7 million people, it's also a place that almost 18 million people come to visit every year. So what is the Highlands? It's a region defined in the Highlands Act. It's 1,340 square miles. In New Jersey, it stretches from Milford and Holland Township and Alexandria down to the far southwest on the Delaware River, extends northeastward across the state up to Mahwah and Oakland in Bergen County at the New York State border. When you look at it, it's a landmass larger than the state of Rhode Island. Right? It's bigger than you realize. And we've got to manage it with a staff of 23 people and a budget of $3 million. It's divided, the law itself divided the region into two portions, the planning area and the preservation area. The preservation area being the darker green you see on the map here on the screen, the planning area being the remainder of the Highlands region. What it means from a practical standpoint is that the provisions of the Highlands Act that have some very strong restrictions on future development are mandatory in the preservation area. They are only voluntary in the planning area. One of the most notable things is that the population of the region is right around 850,000 people. It may be a little higher than that when the next census comes out because growth has continued to occur in the region, but it's relatively low density population compared to the rest of New Jersey. Every day we're called upon to export. It says here 840 million gallons. Our latest calculations put it at almost 863 million gallons a day that go out to the rest of the state. And that has to go. That bill for water comes due every day, regardless of whether we're in a time of plentiful rainfall or if we're in a time of drought like we are right now. And we'll get to that in a little bit as well. So why is it important to protect the Highlands, right? The conditions in the Highlands are perfect for protecting a water supply, right? The forested, the dense forest, the rugged mountainsides, the low population density, the fact that New Jersey gets more, the Highlands gets more rainfall on an annual basis than the rest of New Jersey, right? New Jersey averages somewhere in the 46 to 48 inches of rain per year. In most of the state. In the Highlands, we average around 52 inches of rain. And what does it impact? The three things that we look at that are so important, it's water quality, water quantity, and water timing. I think we all understand what quality and quantity mean. Water timing is a different matter. It means that our water supply has to be available 365 days a year. Right? And that even when it doesn't rain, water is still flowing in the streams, water is still in the reservoirs. Making sure that water supply is there every day of the year is just as important as how much is there and how clean that water is. And towards that, understand that every drop of rain that falls on the Highlands flows to a water supply somewhere in the state. Right? There's a map that has divided into surface reservoirs that you can see, but Highlands water is consumed in a number of different ways. It's either stored and released from drinking water reservoirs. It's used mostly from residents, but also some of the utilities authorities draw it from the ground through groundwater wells. and it's also withdrawn from the rivers. The Passaic River and the Raritan River both have major riverine intakes that take in and distribute Highlands water from them. And understand that protecting the 17% of the land mass that the Highlands represents is not just about that 17%. It's important to the entirety of the state. Right? This is just a map of where Highlands water is shipped off to every day. It goes as far south as Gloucester County in southern New Jersey, but the big consumers of Highlands water are the large northeastern urban areas of the state. And what this map doesn't represent is the thing that's really hard to get your head around, which is the density of population that lives within the service area of the Highlands, right? The bulk of the state's population lives in the diagonal strip that runs from Bergen County in the northeast down southwestward to around Camden County at its southern extreme. Within there, the population densities are on the order of 10,000 people per square mile, 15,000 people per square mile in Hudson County. In some Hudson County municipalities, the population density is up around 50,000, or Gutenberg, which is the most densely populated municipality in the state, at 62,500 people per square mile. What do those numbers mean? It means that you can't drink water from the places where we occupy it that intensely. Those places, the urban areas that are the economic engine of the state and home to the bulk of the state's population, simply could not exist at that intensity without the Highlands. This 17% of the state makes the remainder of the state able to be occupied and have the economic and human activity at the levels that we currently experience. And that is a hard thing for people to understand, that there's this symbiotic relationship between the Highlands and the rest of the state that makes protecting the region so important to the entirety of the state. And so this goes, it's a little redundant of what I just told you, but as I said, 7 million people rely on the Highlands. One thing that we can probably guess, with some degree of certainty, is that the demand will go up. The 863 million gallons of water we ship out today will probably be north of 1 billion gallons a day when we arrive 20 years from now, because the state's population continues to go up. It's essential to the public health and safety of the state, vital for the economic success of the state. And on top of that, we don't know what the future is going to hold between climate change and development pressures, and the things that are going to alter the state of the resources in the region. We have to be very smart about how we manage them today, because the future of the state is relying upon whether we do our job properly or we don't. And you want to talk about things that might keep you up at night. The thought of not doing our job the right way and the consequences of that are way heavy on us here every day. So what are we protecting here in the Highlands, right? It's not just the drinking water, right? The region has a lot more to offer to it. We have here the surface reservoirs, the drinking water, the farm fields, the historic resources, the beautiful and vibrant small towns of the region, and the places that people go. If you want to hike, if you want to fish, if you want to go kayaking, ride your bike across beautiful country landscapes, see nature, right? It's all here in the Highlands, right? If you're gonna visit a farm to pick your own local produce, or maybe sign up for a CSA. And let me just give a public service pitch. If you have the opportunity to patronize Highlands farmers, this is the year to do it. This is going to be a very tough year for farmers in the Highlands. They're having a tough time getting labor to work on the farms. The price of fertilizer has gone through the roof. The price of diesel fuel to run their equipment has gone up. Diesel fuel is around $6 a gallon right now. And the cost of transporting their harvest to market is going to go up because of the price of gasoline being where it's at. That, combined with the economic pressures that are being put on the consumers, not just here in New Jersey, but across the country right now, it's going to make it a very difficult year. So if you can patronize a Highlands farm, buy a share in a CSA, go out and visit a farm. This is a year to do it, because the connection between local food production and the population that lives close by is an essential one to make sure is going to be there long into the future. But if you own a farm in the Highlands, you're within a 2-hour drive of over 20 million people who can be your customers, and we have to make sure that we maintain that food production capacity in proximity to a large population center. So over the course of the last 22 years that the Highlands has been in place, we've had some success. Right. One of the things that if you go back to that animated map I showed you, where you saw the red that represented developed land crawling across the landscape at an alarming rate, we've been able to check that. Right. No longer is that uncontrolled growth covering over the region. We've been able to get a handle to a certain extent on growth and sprawl. The water supply is still adequate for the state's needs, right? If you're down in the urban areas of the state and you turn on the faucet, clean water still comes out. The region is still economically viable, and I'd argue we're probably even more viable today because of the awareness of people about where their food comes from, how it was grown, where it was grown, and also an increased interest in outdoor recreation have brought those visitors to the Highlands. The resources of the Highlands are still here, and we're getting increased buy-in from the region's municipalities in understanding both the obligation that they have because they happen to be in the place where the resources that other people rely upon are existing, and that we're here to be an asset and to work with them to ensure that we can ease the burden on those municipalities and make it possible for them to uphold that obligation that they have and the obligation that we have. And this is all being done in the face of understanding that everybody wants something from the Highlands. They want our water. They want our farm produce. They want the access to our resources. But also because we have been somewhat successful in slowing development in the region, that vacant land is eyed very jealously. And we'll talk about what some of those threats are in a few moments. So the challenges they're facing. I'll start out with the primary challenge that because it's the X factor, right? We just don't know what's going to happen. But climate change and the impact that it's going to have on the region's resources, we don't really have a full understanding of what it's going to mean, right? We know that there's going to be increased extreme precipitation events that'll lead to flooding, inland tropical storm events. We experienced it here in the Highlands during Sandy, where there was tremendous destruction to the region's forests. But if you take a look at what happened last year in North Carolina, when you had an inland hurricane just devastated the forests of North Carolina and Tennessee, that's going to happen again. I can't predict when exactly it will happen, but we're going to see this increased frequency of these inland tropical storm events, increased severe storm events. That means, severe thunderstorms, extreme rainfall events, extreme wind events, right? All these things are going to have an impact on the region, interspersed with periods of drought. Right now, even though it's rained a little bit in the last month or so, we're in the midst of a 2-year drought here in the Highlands, right? 24 of the last 27 months have seen below normal rainfall. And while the reservoirs have managed to fill back up a little bit, if you've been out to the streams of the region or if you've been paying attention to groundwater levels, you're going to see that they're at alarmingly low places right now. And that should be worrying to anybody. We have to make sure that the drinking water supply is reliable no matter what's going on. We have to understand, look what just happened here, the agricultural impacts. We had an early start to the growing season, and then 2 nights ago was down in the mid-20s and had I'm sure that there were a lot of particularly fruit tree crops that were severely impacted by that event. The environmental consequences, right? The changes to the region's forest, what the species composition is of the forest as northern species migrate further north and southern species follow in their wake. But you also see the introduction of a whole host of pests and diseases, not the least of which the emerald ash borer that just in the last 5 years removed the ash tree from the Highlands forest. And what will be next? Beech wilt disease and oak wilt and the things that are going to have an impact on what has long been the core makeup of Highlands forests. At the same time, we're facing development threats. As I said, the vacant land of the Highlands is viewed jealously by developers, right? Whether it be for warehousing, now it's data centers, inappropriately placed or inappropriately scaled housing developments. That increasing population that will be served by the Highlands. And what we really have to be able to be cognizant of is that development in the Highlands has to be managed and managed with a keen eye. And this is why. If we allow too much inappropriate development, really any inappropriate development in the region, you're going to do two things at the same time. You're going to be decreasing the ability of the natural resources of the region to provide water. Why? Because you're putting down impervious coverage. You're cutting down forests. You're disrupting the natural land patterns to put whatever it is you're building here. That decreases the ability of the natural systems to provide water. At the same time, you're going to increase the internal population of the highlands. So you're going to have an increased internal demand. The two things combined will reduce the amount of water that's available to export to the remainder of the state every day. And right now, we don't have a good handle on what the long-term sustainable capacity of the region is. We better hope that it's somewhere greater than 850,000 people because that's where we're at now. I can tell you it's probably not a million people. So keeping the population of the region down so that we don't overtax internally the demand on Highlands water is just as important as protecting the resources that enable that water to be there and to be exported as the demand increases, as the population of the state increases. So if we don't change direction soon, we're going to end up where we're going. So what does it take to manage the watershed properly? This is an interesting question that we struggle with every day, but we have some instructive examples that we can rely upon. Right? We think that we're doing some of the right things right now. I'm pretty sure we're not doing all of the right things right now. And if you spent any time around me for the last 3 years, you've definitely heard me talk about this before. For those of you who are hearing me repeat this, I apologize. But for those of you who are new, I think this is an important comparison to make. Right? We have the New York City Catskill Delaware watershed, just 50 miles to the north of the Highlands. New York City did similarly to what Newark did in the late 1800s. They went out and did the same thing in the Catskills of upstate New York, understanding that New York City could not survive as a city of 9 million people without an appropriate water supply, and that water supply could not come from the geographic boundaries of New York City itself. So what they did was they went up and they got control and manage a watershed in not just east of the Hudson, but about 1,560 square miles that are west of the Hudson in the Catskill region, the headwaters of the Delaware River. And it's been managed for their drinking water supply ever since to world-renowned success. Right, it's the gold standard of how to manage a water supply for a large urban population. And so we can look at what New York City has done in the Catskills and try to mimic it to the greatest extent that we can. We're very similar in size. Like I said, 1,972 square miles that you see on the chart represents the Croton watershed as well. The Catskill Delaware watershed is closer to 1,500 square miles and is very close in size to the New Jersey Highlands. We have 88 municipalities in parts of 7 counties. They have 42 municipalities, parts of 5 counties. This is the big difference. We have 850,000 people with all their needs and all the impacts of 850,000 people living there scattered amongst the resources, while there's only about 62,000 people living in the Catskill Delaware watershed. Right? We're exporting that 800 plus million gallons a day. They're north of 1 billion. They have about 135,000 acres in agriculture, or about 110,000. There's the big difference here also. About 54% of the Highlands is forested, about 725 square miles, and about 75% of the Catskills is forested, the Catskill watershed. The other one is that they spend about $108 million a year managing their watershed every year, while we're expected to get the same results with about $5.5 million annually. And I make that pitch every year to the legislature. Hopefully one of these days it will fall on the ears of people who understand that it's so important to the future of the state. I don't ever expect to see $108 million invested in the Highlands every year, but I do expect that we should be investing a little bit more than the $5.5 million. And I have very specific places where that money can and should be spent to make sure that the water supply is going to be protected in perpetuity. So the major factors in protecting the water supply, right? We know that the prime indicator of water quality, water quantity, and water timing is the amount of forest canopy coverage and forest soil health. And to that end, we have to understand that managing the forests of the region are a long-term prospect, right? When you plant a tree, when you're managing, when you're doing forest management, right? The aims are not what happens today. The aims are what are going to happen 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, right? And to be taking steps now so that the benefits that will be actually realized for the next generation of people who are going to rely on Highlands water will have been set in place today, right? If it's a 50-year prospect and we put it off for a year, it's suddenly become a 51-year prospect. And so we have to start making the investments and taking the actions right now that are going to yield those dividends well down the road. And that's a tough thing to get across to people sometimes because right, human beings are very here and now in our thinking, and politicians in particular are, what's this going to mean to me in the next election cycle? And we're talking about future generations and the work that we do. And there's a disconnect there. But I would argue that good policy makes for good politics. And we reap the benefits of good decisions that people who came before us made just as assuredly as we pay the bill for the bad decisions that they made. And I'll put this premise out to you that we have a moral obligation to make as many good decisions for the next generation and as few poor decisions, and saddle them with as few bad problems as we can. We're still going to make mistakes, that make no doubt about it. But I think we know better, and we have to do what it takes to make those good decisions. So we have to limit impervious surface wherever possible to less than 10% of a watershed. Why? Because that's always been the target area at which a watershed becomes degraded. So the more natural land cover there is within a watershed, the better off we are, because the water quality and quantity and timing elements will all be protected. We have to remove both point and non-point sources of pollution and develop programs and make investments today that are going to ensure that we're taking the proper measures to protect the future of the state, as well as protect what we need today. So what do we have to do? We have to limit development to appropriate locations. We have to understand that the agricultural industry is a big part of the landscape of the Highlands, and the most easily developed land is usually the agricultural land, right? It's usually free of the regulated resources, although we view prime agricultural soils as a major resource of the region. But we have to make sure that the agriculture remains a viable industry, because only if it's viable will people continue to farm within the region. And I would also offer the premise that in an era of climate change where we don't know on a global scale what's going to happen, making sure that a place that has adequate annual rainfall and good, actually great soils capable of producing food in proximity to large population centers, that 20 or 50 or 100 years from now, that's going to be a vital resource to the people who are going to be living here in New Jersey. We have to do better land management. We have to come up with better agricultural practices. We have to make sure that when forest management and forest stewardship is conducted within the region, that it be done with an eye towards improving the qualities of the forest that protect the water supply. And those are known practices that are out there in use across the country. We have to limit overall impervious surface, because it is that change of land coverage that will increase runoff, carry pollutants with it, prevent groundwater recharge, right? There's a lot of things that flow from too much impervious coverage that we have to just try to avoid going forward. At the same time, we also have to maintain sustainable economic opportunities within the region. right? We're not the Keebler-Elves. We don't live in a hollow tree. We're human beings and we have human needs. We have to go to work. We need places to live, places to shop, places to do all of the things that make up our daily activities, and make sure they're available to the people who live in the Highlands, and to find ways to increase economic activity within the region that are still compatible with our resource protection goals. We have to properly fund the Highlands Council. Like I said, we're not going to get $108 million worth of impact on a budget of $5.5 million. And we also have to understand finally that the municipalities that are in the Highlands, that are host to these resources, that are taking the measures at the local level to protect them for the benefit of the people who live in the more densely populated portions of the state, that has a consequence to the people who are running those towns, and it has a financial consequence. And we have to be able to financially support those towns appropriately to make sure that they can remain sustainable and viable going forward. And that's not an easy thing to do. But the bottom line is this, and what I have up here is probably the most important message. Understand we are all in this together. The urban areas of the state could not exist without the Highlands. The Highlands could not have the economic opportunities that the urban areas make available to all of us here in New Jersey, if those urban areas were not vital themselves. So there's something to be gained by everyone in protecting the region, and it's essential to have a sustainable and livable population. New Jersey is a place where 9 million people were not sentenced to live. Right? Why do so many people live here? Right? As New Jerseyans, we know because we experience it every day. New Jersey, as crowded and as expensive as it is still probably the most remarkable place to live in the United States, right? And we know why, and I'm not going to go over those reasons, but it is a great place to live. This is all about keeping New Jersey a great place to live. So this is supposed to be, right, Tracy? This is supposed to be about municipal officials. So let's talk about their role. And we work with municipalities every day. It's so important because this is New Jersey at the end of the day. All things have to run through the municipal at the municipal level. 565 municipalities within the state, each their own little kingdom. Our whole goal is to try to get the 88 municipalities of the region to understand that they are not an island in and of themselves, that they have a responsibility to the rest of the state, that the resources that they are host to do not have a local basis to them, that they have a regional basis to them, and they have to look beyond the borders of their town and understand that the actions that they take have consequences beyond the edge of town. And one of the main ways that we work with municipalities is the map that you see here. This is the land use capability map that accompanies the Highlands Regional Master Plan. Right, we could go into all the goals and policies of the regional master plan. At the end of the day, what does it come down to? People love to look at this map. This map is important because this map tells you where building and human occupation should take place and where it should not take place, or if it does take place at a lesser intensity. So everything that you see in green, that's our protection zone. That's generally the forested lands of the Highlands, the high natural resource value lands of the Highlands, the places that really contribute the most towards protecting the water supply. The brown areas are the agricultural areas of the region. Agriculture is probably the largest single land use after residential development. And as I said, it's vital because it is an economic driver that's consistent with the other goals of the Highlands, and something that has to be maintained. What you see in yellow is our existing community zone. Those are the places where people live, or where we've determined that in the future it's okay for more development to take place. If you are in those yellow areas, those are the occupied portions of the Highlands. And you can see that we map this without regard to the planning area preservation area divide. This is just the Highlands writ large, evaluated in a very scientific, very objective way. This is not a political map. This is a scientific map based upon conditions on the ground. And anything that you do at this scale, I'm sure you're going to find places where the map may be inaccurate in small areas, but this map is 99.9% accurate at the end of the analysis. What does this map mean? If you are in the green or the brown and you own land in those areas, you will not get sewer or water service extended to those portions of the region. If you are in the yellow or if you're in a designated center, which does not show on this map, those are the places where sewer and water are available. And that goes back to the overall goal that we have of directing growth and occupation of the land to places where it's appropriate and where it won't impact the resources and protecting the rest of the region. So if you're in the you're in municipal government, you're wondering what does the Highlands mean to you? Well, understand first of all that the Highlands Act, by its terms, placed mandatory restrictions on development in the preservation area of the region. Even so, land use decisions with some input from the Highlands Council still rest with municipal government. The Highlands sets up guardrails, right, about what's the wrong kind of use, what are the wrong places to develop, what are the design factors that should go into how you build, right? Where it will, yes, no, if you build, where you build, how you build, right, are all important decisions that have to be made. And most of that gets passed down with our guidance to the municipality. As long as the municipality stays within those guardrails, you're going to have control over what you do at the local level. And we have the Highlands Regional Master Plan that provides broad guidance and a series of policies and goals that should inform the local municipal land use laws, right? What you're doing at the local level. What does your master plan say? What is your zoning in terms of where you've zoned for intense infrastructure related development and where you have not? Are your septic densities appropriate? Are your preservation targets appropriate? Do you have the right policies in place at the local level, right? And that's how we inform municipalities how they should be conducting their business at the local level. At the end of this analysis, if you go back and look at that map and you know your municipality and your local zoning, maybe I should go back to the map for a second. If you look at that map and you compare it to your local zoning, you're probably going to find very few variances between where we think you should be building intensely and where your municipality thinks that they should be, right? For the most part, if you're a Highlands municipality, you've been doing some type of capacity-based planning for the last 50 years, right? And what we do is we come in and we just enhance your ability to have control at the local level over your future. I like to say that what we keep you from doing is most likely things you shouldn't have been doing in the first place, right? We keep you from doing stupid things. And if you're doing the right thing, we're here to support you and we're here to give you whatever assets we can and put them at your disposal to make your job easier. Which takes me next. The Highlands Council and municipalities, how do we work, right? We want to be looked at as an asset and a partner for your municipalities. We offer technical support. We offer grant funding to municipalities. If you are a conforming municipality, you get certain legal protections that non-conforming municipalities and more importantly, non-Highlands municipalities do not enjoy. A conforming municipality enjoys an enhanced presumption of validity to its land use decisions that are made when they're in conformance with the Highlands Regional Master Plan. Understand that we are not a regulatory agency. We do not have regulations that we impose, and we are not the decision makers on the regulations. That comes from DEP, from the Department of Environmental Protection. Now they have to do certain things. Oh, excuse me. Let me say this is Bring Your Child to Work Day here at the Highlands, as I'm sure it is for you. And they're all running around behind me. Okay.
Highlands heroes
So
here today learning.
Indulge me for a second while I have them all here.
See what they're learning.
What do we do here at the Highlands? That's good.
That's good.
That's what we do here. Now get out of here, kids.
Thank you, guys.
That's what it's about. It's about the future of the state. And it's a little bit of a goofy way of demonstrating it. But this is about the future. So if you're a municipality and you want to work with us through plan conformance, first of all, you should have already conformed your town for the preservation area portions of your town, because that is in the law. We still have a handful of municipalities in the Highlands that are not conforming. I'm not going to name them here. I'm not looking to embarrass anybody, but those towns are in violation of the law and do not have access to either the grant funding, the technical support, or the legal protections that the Highlands offers because of their failure to conform. We have plenty of municipalities that are 100% in the planning area that have chosen to conform. We have plenty of municipalities in the Highlands that have chosen to conform the entirety of their town for both the planning area and the preservation area. What does that mean? All it means is that they've aligned their local land use with the regional master plan and the provisions of the Highlands Act. Understand that plan conformance in the planning area, if you're thinking about this, it's not opting into the preservation area. There are different standards within the planning area than the preservation area, but you still get those legal protections and you still get more and enhanced control over your town because you are a conforming municipality. We pay for any planning activities that are designed to further the conformance with the regional master plan. That takes a certain amount of financial burden over the local municipality. And if you are a conforming municipality, you can actually bypass going to DEP for your residents and grant certain exemptions at the local level. So those are all really important benefits that the Highlands towns that work with us enjoy. So that being said, as we look at what we're trying to do with our municipalities going forward, there are certain management challenges that are there. We talked about some of the threats. The ones that are on at the front of everyone's mind right now are probably around warehousing and data centers and affordable housing developments that are one of the big policy areas that we have to wrestle with. And the rateable chase, right? Every municipality in the state is facing budget challenges right now. And the easiest place to look for some kind of relief is the idea that maybe that one development, right? That one warehouse, that one data center that's going to pay me some big revenue on the tax side and not put a lot of service requirements on my town. That's going to be my ticket to long-term economic sustainability at the municipal level. It's not true. No town in New Jersey has ever been able to rateable its way out of its tax bill, or right, that the other drivers of cost just are unavoidable. And when we look at the map that you see there, we map watersheds on the HUC 14 basis, which is about 5,000 acres a piece. Think about this: one warehouse will likely put down around 50 acres of impervious coverage. If we talked about before that we want to keep each watershed, each sub-watershed below 10% in its impervious coverage, that means that you've only got 500 acres of impervious coverage for the entirety of that watershed. You're devoting 1% of that 10% to a single development. And when you look at what is the long-term viability of a warehouse development, probably not 50 or 100 years, but the impacts of building one will be there certainly for that length of time. Data centers, not just the impervious coverage they put down, but the water use that they represent. And the Highlands soon will be coming out with data center guidance that is designed to both limit the number of data centers that can be built in the region, but also direct how they can be built. I talked before about the where, but the how is just as important, right? If we're going to allow data centers anywhere within the region, they have to be designed so that they are not consumptive water users, right? We're worried about the consumption of water from human beings, let alone the consumption of water from data centers and what it would mean to the internal consumption of water in the Highlands, reducing the ability of the region to export water out to the rest of the state that relies upon it. And as you can see from this map, by looking at the areas in yellow and brown, there are certain hotspots within the Highlands where impervious coverage has exceeded the limits right now of where waterways would be impaired. Now, in some instances, that's existing development that has been tied to the longstanding 250-year-old development patterns of the state as a whole. Some of it is related to the rapid suburbanization of the region that took place in the 70s and 80s and 90s that led to the imposition of the restrictions of the Highlands Act. But mostly you see, and thankfully what you see, is that the majority of the region, the vast majority of the region, remains unimpaired. And we need to keep it that way if the Highlands is going to be able to provide the resources that it needs. So if you're a municipality, what kinds of resources do we make to you financially? Uh, we have a grant program every year. We try to fully expend our grant monies every year right now because in the last 3 years we've had over a dozen new municipalities go through the conformance process, most of them entirely within the planning area because they recognize the advantages of working with us. Um, but our typical grants, the first one is the initial assessment grant. If your town is not conforming, we'll give you a grant for you to evaluate what the impact of conformance with the Highlands is so you can make an intelligent, informed decision as to whether or not conformance is right for your municipality. Now, I'm biased, but I believe that you're going to find in almost every instance that conformance is going to be highly beneficial to your municipality. But don't take my word for it. Take our $15,000 grant, have your professionals do the assessment of the impacts to your town. You're going to find out what it means. All plan conformance activities at the local level are funded by the Highlands. And these are non-competitive grants. You put together a scope of work in conjunction with the planner who's been assigned to your town. We approve that scope of work. Your professionals do the work. When it's done, you submit the invoice to us. The bill gets paid. I sign those checks every day. We're working. We worked with and are currently working on stormwater and water quality management efforts, and we fund those. Affordable housing plans that every town in New Jersey had to do last year. We funded those for our conforming municipalities. And I'll point out that if you're a conforming municipality, you probably found out one of the big advantages of being a Highlands municipality was that you had the ability to go into your affordable housing plan with us by your side, with our guidance as the direction for how you were going to put your plan together, what your obligation should be, which properties were truly available for development as an affordable housing plan within the Highlands, and that you probably haven't found yourself on the wrong side of the lawsuit with the Fair Share Housing Center because of that. And then we fund specialty plans. You want to do an open space plan. You want to do an economic development plan for your town, a trails plan, an agricultural promotion plan, and so many other of the ancillary plans that are related to the larger goals of the Highlands. If you're willing to take those steps at the local level, we're going to pay. We're going to pay for them or help you pay for them. Just an example of some of the types of grants that we've given out. Master plan update for Vernon Township, gave them $55,000. A circulation plan for Phillipsburg. The Musconetcong River Stream Bank stabilization plan in Roxbury. And again, what you see here on the screen are a fraction of what we give out on a monthly basis here. Like I said, we don't have a big pot of money, but it's impactful, right? $70,000 to a town like West Milford to do something that they had to do anyway. They had to map their stormwater infrastructure. If they had to bear that burden on their own, it does have an impact on their local budget. We were able to relieve them of that. And if you're a conforming municipality in the Highlands, we'll do the same for you. So that's my presentation for today. And Tracy, I suppose we're going to be able to handle questions now, or not. So it's up to you.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions here, and I think you touched on most of them, but maybe you could elaborate.
Sure.
Of the 1,340 square miles in the region, approximately how much is conforming to the regional master plan? And I think you answered the question, are more and more municipalities in the planning area opting to conform?
Right. That's it. Right. That second question is the easy one because that's a yes. Right.
Mhm.
And like I said, we've seen 15 new municipalities. Right. Kind of my friends in Harding Township kind of started the avalanche of towns that came in. I'd say, we've got 5 towns that are in the preservation area towns that have a portion of their town in the preservation area that have not conformed. The remainder of the preservation area is in compliance with the law. We probably have about a third of the planning area towns in for full conformance.
Okay.
The places where we really haven't made the inroads are out in Warren County, although that's changing right now. and the more developed towns along the eastern edge of Morris County, Morris Township, Hanover Township, Montville is only conforming for the preservation area. Bloomingdale and Butler don't work. Pequannock, they're not working with us right now. But what you've seen is the certainly well over half, probably I'd say probably 3/4 of the region is in conformance right now, or in the process of conforming.
All right, thank you. Just have to keep talking about it and encourage more municipalities to join forces with us, with you. Lynette was asking, New York City pays into the state of New York for their Preservation Highlands area. How do we get Trenton and Newark to uphold their financial responsibility and pay our Highlands area townships for the usage of our water? And I also would like to add, I've been seeing a lot on Facebook. There's this Highlands Impact Aid page. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about
Sure,
that.
Tracy. And it's a good question. It's one I've been wrestling with since I, look, having been the mayor of a Highlands municipality myself for an extended period of time, right? I understand that there are obligations that come along with right. You don't have the ability to squander resources that other people are relying on, right? It's just not, it's not right at a very basic level. But I also think now with the Highlands, you don't have the legal opportunity to do that. But understand that with that obligation comes cost. And every day, 863 million gallons of water going out the door, going to the rest of the state. The benefits of the Highlands are flowing outbound with no return of benefits to underwrite the costs to the municipalities of protecting those resources. Now, what you see in Jefferson is not directly related to the Highlands. It is and it isn't. It's related to the Highlands to the extent that their population has gone static, right? They're in a place where the growth that happened in the late 20th century doesn't exist anymore. What that means is that their population is not continuing to increase. Our school funding formula in this state is dependent upon population, right? It's directly related to the number of students in the school district. And because they've gone static, right, the funding formula doesn't recognize that the need is still there. So that to that level, that's where the impact has been. The real impact comes more to the local municipal tax base, where there is no ability to quickly or substantially increase the tax base, right? And in a lot of Highlands municipalities, that's not a problem, right? That they're living within a balance between their tax base and the service demand that they have. The less populated towns have to offer less services, and they're probably in a place where they're in a better balance between them. What you see in a place like Jefferson is there's a tremendous amount of watershed land that's not being taxed fully within the town, right? The city of Newark, Jersey City, the water supply authorities, they don't pay full tax on the land, because we only understand how to value land in terms of its development potential. In the Highlands, that land that was purchased back in the late 1890s was purchased because of the capability and the value that land had to protection of the water supply. We don't know how to appropriately assign a dollar value to that resource that would enable it to be taxed at an appropriate level.
Yet.
Right? Right. I think that's one of the things we need to work towards. And look, and you understand, this is something that we've been giving a lot of in-depth analysis and thought to.
I know.
One great resource, that the National Academy of Sciences did an analysis of the New York City watershed across the board, not just the land management, but the economic impacts that it has. And New York City pays full tax on its land because it understands that the municipalities that are host to its water supply need to be kept sustainable, right? That there's a relationship there. We need to get to the point where we're financial. It doesn't necessarily have to come directly from the municipalities that are benefiting, the state as a whole, because the highlands are of utmost importance to the entirety of the state. There are state resources that can be brought to bear. Do
Yeah.
we have watershed moratorium aid that appropriately calculates the acres that should be eligible for consideration? And once you do that calculation, are we paying an appropriate amount per acre for that land? That alone would have a tremendous impact on the fiscal health of the municipalities. Right now, West Milford, for example, gets over $750,000 a year and has for the last 22 years. Right. So they've had millions of dollars pour into their town in
Hmm.
watershed moratorium aid. Still might not be enough when you go over and do the calculations, but there are measures that are there that we can enhance or tweak or do better or add to the pot that would ease that burden on Highlands municipalities.
Oof, that was a long answer. It doesn't
Uh,
sound like it's,
and it's only half. And Tracy, I have to. It's only half the answer, right?
I'd like to hear more of the answer.
Yep.
We'll have to chat,
Yep.
because we need to get this going.
Yep.
Neil says, are the carrots and sticks, quote unquote, adequate for encouraging municipalities to conform to the Highlands?
Yeah, I'm not so much the stick part. I think the carrots really are themselves, right? The
Yeah,
benefits of working with us, doing better planning, the legal protection, right? Right. Just the personal angst that municipal officials probably were facing as they entered the fourth round of affordable housing. The Highlands towns that were working with us, that a lot of that angst was taken away from them, right? A lot of the issues that they feared went by the wayside. So just that alone, along with the fact that we're going to pay for ordinary things that otherwise will be coming from the general fund of the municipality, funded by the local taxpayers, that we take some of that burden off. I would love to be able to do more for the towns,
yeah.
but what we do has real world impact, real world benefits.
Yes, and I think any municipality that has recently conformed they're grateful. They're
Yeah.
grateful for the assistance that they've had. Mike is asking, do you provide grant funding for the creation of an environmental resource inventory?
Yes, we do. And in fact, funny you should ask. One of the things that we have as a resource that's available to every municipality in the state is we have our in the Highlands is the environmental resource the interactive environmental resource map that you can find on our website. That alone will generate the bones, including the text of an environmental resource inventory for your town. And so we've given you, and it's got lots and lots of data points that are available for you to access. Some of them live, some of them, real-time data particularly the climate data, that's right up to date. It's updated as the source gets updated. And it's made the cost of doing an environmental resource inventory for a town very, very manageable. And again, we will pay for that manageable amount.
Great, super helpful. Bill is asking, is there a timeline for when you're going to have the data center guidance up?
I wish we had it now, Tracy. Like I said, I don't want to constantly be playing catch up, but we have right. We're going to do it as a regional master plan update, and we have some constraints on how we can do that. The first thing we have to do is get our monitoring report done, because all master plan updates have to come from developed empirical data that comes through that update, and that should be done in June. And once that's done, one of the first things we're going to do with that data is to put together our data center guidelines and adopt them. Right, we have to put it out for public comment for 60 days. We have to have 6 public hearings. Right, and it's got to be based on something in the NPRR that supports it. Right, it's not just I was in the shower yesterday and I thought it'd be a great idea if we did this. So it's got to be based in fact.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that what it will likely include, because we have, right, we're not waiting to think it through. It's going to talk about loss of agricultural land. It's going to talk about the water usage, that we are going to require that they be either air cooled systems or closed loop systems that don't consume water. And they're going to have to be dependent upon the ability of the electric grid to accept to accept their entry into it. And my hope is that the data center demand is going to go down as well. But right now, it's just it's running a little bit rampant, and we
Yeah.
have to get to the place where we can put some controls on it.
Well, I look forward to seeing that. So I heard somebody, can you hear me still? Okay.
Yes.
So, someone was, who was saying it? I forget now that how dare we call them data centers? They're junk centers. Just a bunch of junk that these things are putting out. As I was watching my grandson watch freaking YouTube videos, it's all AI generated.
Yeah.
And I said, Benjamin, you realize that these are bad for the earth, don't you?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, that's a much deeper philosophical conversation,
It
Tracy.
really is.
I
Um,
I just
Kath,
want to jump in and
sure, please,
just
Mara.
say thank you to Ben. This is Mara.
Hey,
Hi
Mara, how are
Ben.
you?
Thank you so much. We so appreciate your time and your insights, and thank you and the staff at the council for bringing renewed attention to just how critical the Highlands are to Jersey's drinking water supply. Of course, you're carrying the torch that was lit over 120 years ago,
That's right.
apparently,
Yep.
since we've known this since as early as 1907. And the fact that we're still here trying to allocate the appropriate level of funding and support to maintain that resource is a little mind-boggling. But here we
Right.
are.
Glad to hear you
And
say that, Mara, because it boggles my mind.
It
well, I
is
mean,
mind-boggling.
I guess that with that in mind, God, how do we move from a shared understanding that we have this critical resource here, to a shared financial and policy responsibility across the regions? Like, how do we get everybody in one room and sit down and hammer this out?
Mhm.
If you could figure that out, Mara, please tell me.
Okay.
I've been working at that because it is to me it's mystifying. Right? I believe in the power of the message that we have, and that it should carry the day. The problem is that we do live in a political world, right? And you know my message is that we're all in this together. New Jersey's not a big enough place that we can afford to have a here versus there attitude about how we do things. Yet that's how we operate. And the bottom line is that the Highlands happens to be a part of the state that's dominated by Republican voters, and the urban areas where the water is consumed happens to be dominated by Democratic voters. And we're in such a polarized state of affairs, not just in New Jersey, but in the country right now, that we're not reaching across that divide, and we have to, because there are benefits to both sides of that equation that have to be realized, that we're not going to get to if we continue to stare at each other. Right? The urban areas of the state don't appreciate that this is where their water comes from, and the rural areas where the water comes from don't appreciate the benefits that the urban areas of the state provide. And yet, we we take advantage of those benefits regardless of where you are every day of our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, take your child to work day to day. Hopefully we don't leave it to them to
Oh,
figure this out.
right.
Thank you again, Ben. Appreciate it.
Sure.
There's a couple more questions here. Kathleen is asking, what is the first step for a municipality in the planning area to learn more and get a consensus to get on board with conformance? I'm from Morris Township Environmental Commission.
Okay, so Morris Township has just requested an initial assessment grant.
Yay.
So they've already taken the first step. So what they'll do is, they'll hire their professionals to do an analysis of what the regional master plan and what the environmental, the land use capability zones mean to their town, match it up against your existing zoning and what your master plan looks like, and they'll come out with a list of what those impacts are, and your local government will then be able to make an informed decision as to whether or not they want to proceed. Right? And we're here every step of the way, right? Every town in the Highlands has one of our planners designated as their liaison to hold their hand and walk them through the process.
Great. I think that's it on the questions. I just kind of had one quick one, Ben. I was reading a little bit about forestry and forestry management, and apparently there's an awful lot of private forested land, which I guess it doesn't have the same constraints.
It doesn't. But
Um,
again, that's where we look towards New York, Tracy, right? That New
mhm,
York partners with the private landowner, right? New York does not own the entirety of the 1,500 acres of the Catskill Delaware watershed,
right.
right? There's a lot of agricultural land and a lot of forested land that's in private hands and privately managed. And what they do is that they financially support, right, through paying for foresters to write the plans for the private landowners. And if a private landowner chooses to conduct forestry that's designed to enhance the water protection qualities
Mhm.
of the land, that they'll actually underwrite the costs and make it easier. Do the same with farmers to do lower impact
Farming.
agricultural practices. If we
Mhm.
want private landowners to do the right things, then we should be willing to put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, on this, and help them do that, right? And because we do still have right, we still have private, people have a right to use their land and private property rights, but we want to guide them to the greatest extent that we can towards doing things that are going to meet these greater goals. And and in particular in the preservation area of the Highlands, where developing your land really isn't going to be an option. Putting another burden, well, you got to do things this way. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we want you to do things this way, but guess what? If you're going to do them the right way, we're going to help pay for it for you.
And do you have the funding to be able to do that?
No, no,
No,
right?
I
That's
didn't,
one of the,
I didn't think
go
so.
back to my long-winded answer
Yeah,
before. That's
yeah.
in the other half of the answer, that we have to get
Ah,
access to funds that
okay.
would help, that would help preserve land, right? That's the other
Mm-hmm.
thing. Understand, 230 square miles of the Highlands still remains undeveloped but developable, even at a low level. That would be highly destructive to the region and impact our ability to protect the water supply.
Right.
And so there's no money for us to conduct land preservation in the region, and there is no money for us to underwrite these programs that would enhance land management, right? I look at the two things as hand in hand, right? Not just preserving land in perpetuity,
Mm-hmm.
but also
Mm-hmm.
helping land that's not preserved be managed in a better manner.
Yeah. It's inexcusable in my
Yeah, and that
mind.
could come from Reggie funding. I mean, right
Uh-huh.
there's Reggie funding out there. There's natural resource damage claim money that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't right. You compare how we treat water here in New Jersey versus how they treat it in the western part of the country, where it's a real scarce resource, and there's no comparison between how precious it's seen out west and how we almost squander it here because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're lulled into a false sense of security because it's abundant. But
We
this
are.
2 year drought, hopefully this 2 year drought's getting some people's attention.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Ben, thank you so much. Do you have any closing words?
Not just that, look, this is a continuing obligation that's going to go on for long after I'm here, right? I'm just passing the torch on to the person who'll come after me, and hopefully I've moved the ball forward enough that we're heading in the right direction right now, right? We still have that challenge for funding. We still have all the development pressures that I outlined, right? The Highlands will always remain at risk just because of where it's at, right? It's so close to New York City, so close to Philadelphia, so close to the 9.5 million people who already live in the state, that there's always going to be pressure on the resources here, and it's always going to be a challenge. You throw, right, as if that wasn't a big enough stunt, right? Being New Jersey, let's throw climate change into the
Oh,
mix, and
yeah.
just put a little more chaos into the effort. So those are all the challenges that we're going to face going forward. We have to be up to them, and we have to be able to make the commitment and the investment, right? We've been lulled into a false sense of security because water always comes out of the tap. That may not always be the case, and the only way we can ensure that it's not always going to be that it's going to be the case long into the future is to make the commitment, effort, investment today that we have to.
I agree. Oh, one more question. Do you have a forester on staff?
We
No,
do
right?
not. Hopefully we will very soon.
Oh, that would be
But
great. Awesome.
that's one of the other challenges we have. We are severely understaffed. Right? We don't have an agricultural specialist. We don't have a forester or a land management specialist. We don't have a climate scientist, and we don't have a water resource engineer. All very, very easily filled positions. And for a very modest investment in the annual budget of the agency, less than $1 million, right? You're talking about maybe adding between $500,000 and $700,000 a year to our annual budget in a state that's got a $60 billion budget. Do the math. In
Yeah.
order to understand what that represents of the state, the total state budget, you need scientific notation to understand what a small fraction of the overall spending that would represent. But the capabilities it would give us would be magnified, and the benefits spread across the state.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all we have here. So go grab a sandwich, cold drink, step outside. It's beautiful. And I'll see you soon, Ben.
All right, Tracy, thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.